Hello and welcome to episode 73 of the award-winning combat sports podcast, The Boxing Show. With me, your host, Rob Tebbutt. As always, I'd like to remind everybody to please like, comment and subscribe. Turn your notifications on for more boxing content. Now that's out of the way, I am joined by the usual twosome of Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Andy Clarke as we review this weekend's action and look forward to a packed weekend of boxing. How are we doing, guys? We well?
Yeah, good, thanks.
You do look tired today.
I went to Lapland with my kids last week.
Oh, really?
And see Santa Claus, the real Santa Claus, because he's real. I didn't realise he was real. And
busy time of year for him.
And he invited us for nothing. Like, it was all free of charge for Santa Claus. So my kids think
generous guy.
It cost an absolute fucking fortune, right? And I'm dying to tell him because I want the credit for it. But anyway, it was freezing. But, you know, when like they're going, "Oh, look what Santa's got." I see Santa got you nothing, mate. All Santa's got like is me like skint. But it was brilliant actually. It was amazing. But it's really you're up early, you're doing stuff straight away. You know, it's like non-stop. It's really busy, and then I got back Friday evening, and then I had to go to Birmingham Saturday, so I'm absolutely smashed.
That's some trip, Lapland to Birmingham, two magical places on this earth.
Frotcher was complaining to me the other day about going to Lapland. He said, "Yeah, I've got to go to Lapland because I think he's going to be. I think I'm going to see him this week." And he said, "No, I don't know if I'll be able to go because I think I'll go to Lapland. He's going to hate it. It's like -29. It's terrible. It's awful. But the kids like it."
You can just imagine him as well, just completely not going for it as well.
To be honest, it's a lot of money. He can afford it. I can't. But I would go again with them. I mean, if you've got kids and if you can afford it.
It sounds great.
I've got half of that. I've got kids.
It sounds like it's worth it just for like those like little moments almost.
I think like they lived every second of it. They really did. Little bastards.
Well, it's a nice wholesome start to today's episode, but we are going to crack on because we've got a big show to review in Birmingham with a lot of fights that were of interest. It was a very good card, but obviously we'll come on to that, and then we'll look ahead to this weekend. Barry, going to come to you first. You were, of course, in attendance in Birmingham for Sonny Edwards versus Galal Yafai. Dominant performance from Galal Yafai. A 6-round stoppage win. Really ran through Sonny Edwards. And produced a breakout performance. I mean, not many people, whether you picked Galal Yafai, whether you picked Sonny Edwards, were expecting such a one-sided dominant performance.
No, it was hard. It was when you were predicting the fight, it was hard to pick a winner, wasn't it? And I don't know why, because Sonny should have been a massive favourite, but you sort of thought. I think Galal. Did we touch on that on the last? I didn't.
You weren't here for the preview.
Well, I did my own one in my bedroom, and but I was always thinking
picked Yafai in the 6th.
No, but I thought I would have went with Sonny because I would have thought that I just thought he might find a way, but like Galal did a lot of things that Galal does well weren't good for Sonny. You know, I mean, he's a southpaw with a long reach, like bam. And he's got fast hands, and he's physically strong, but he cuts the ring off quite well, and he did on Saturday night. But no one saw that. I mean, he just beat him up. That wasn't even just a dominant performance. He just beat him up. He bullied him from the offset. I mean, and I think he took his time. He could have got the stoppage quicker. I think if he would have forced it. He listened to his corner really well. You know, after the first round, Ron McCracken said you just need to tidy up a little bit. Your shots are a bit looping. Punch a little bit straight there and don't rush it. And he listened to him. He was just so focused. I mean, it was a massive, massive statement for that flyweight division now. Like, you know, because having the potential to be a world champion is one thing. Proving that you can do it, because he beat arguably the best guy in the division. Yeah, and he beat him at a breeze. By the way, absolutely, it was so easy for him. And I know we're going to talk about Sonny's, maybe mental state and how he was. But if Sonny would have come up, would Sonny have been in that mind? I'm not questioning what he said after the fight, but if he'd had the good couple of rounds, if he started off the fight good, would he have thought that way in round 2 or round 3? If it was starting to get a bit harder, I'm not quite sure. He didn't. He just wasn't allowed any success. He jumped on him straight away, hurt him straight away, and broke his spirit. It was just a massive, massive statement and a brilliant performance. And you just think no. I mean, he got a belt of sorts, whatever that means. And I know, but I mean, he's the guy in the division, isn't he? He's the guy. Even the champions are going to fight him. He's maybe the money guy now in that division.
Yeah, it does. He picked up the WBC interim belt, and for those who we all love an interim belt here on the Boxing Show.
So I gotta say, to be fair, at the press conference, he was. I just seen a clip, and he was going to Eddie. What do I do with this? I don't need to take this up, do I?
Yeah,
he didn't like.
There was he got he got attacked with a WBC cap after the fight. Quickly got rid of that, which I know we drew a few celebrations from people on Twitter. But yeah, as the WBC interim champion, he is now in line to box Kenshiro Taraji, who picked up the vacant title with a win over Christopher Rosales. Remember him? He had a period of time, didn't he? Of like he knocked out Paddy Barnes, Christopher Rosales. He boxed Charlie Edwards. He sort of been
dropped Andrew Selby, didn't he?
Yeah, Andrew Selby. But that fight could well happen at some point. But anyway, Andy, going to come to you. We sat here on the preview. We both predicted, a nip and tuck fight, and it was difficult to draw a winner from it. You did. I would like to put out there, pick Galal Yafai. You just felt something was in the air for him, and it proved to be the case on the night. I mean, that was about as emphatic as you can win a boxing match.
It was. I didn't pick that method of victory. I have to be honest about that. But it was a mismatch in the end. Yeah. It was. And I'm not trying to denigrate Sonny Edwards when I say that, but what we had on Saturday was we had one fighter who was exactly where he needed to be mentally and physically, who, as he said in the ring afterwards to Eddie, and I found this really interesting, who had trained with that knot of fear in his stomach, that not because he was fearful, but just because, what if I lose? I can't lose. It was huge for him. And that drives you, and you need that. That's what fighters all tell you. You need that. But then when it got to fight week, he was bursting with confidence and just ready to get in there. And on the night, laser focused and mean and cruel and aggressive and cold. He was everything that you could possibly want.
Perfect.
Coming out of the other corner was somebody who was none of those things on the night. He showed a lot of hunger and desire in his career. Sonny, of course, he has. He's been a world champion, but he won't have trained like that because people talk about rising to the occasion or not rising to the occasion. Athletes generally, they will perform to the level of their training. That's what happens. And you can find inspiration in really, really difficult moments, in clashes where you've both trained really well and you're both performing to the level of your training, and then it'll be decided by just a bit of magic or something or other. But generally that's what you see, because there is no hiding place, and what you do in the gym is what you'll see on the night, really. And that's what we saw. And I think Sonny Edwards walking to the ring would have known that he probably needed a bit of a miracle, but that with his experience and his pedigree and skill, obviously, that if he could make a decent start and find a groove, then just maybe he could, on muscle memory almost, just find a way. But all of that evaporated in the first 30 seconds. I mean, Galal Yafai just stomped all over that. And from that point onwards, I think he knew that it was an impossible task. I don't think it would have taken him back to... Well, maybe it did take him back to a little bit the experience he had against Rodriguez, because I think that would have had a pretty profound effect on him. Because the fight he had since then against Curiel wasn't against someone who was going to try and cut off the ring and beat him up. But Saturday was. And that's not to take anything away from Galal. It's a compliment, if anything. I'm not saying he's Bam Rodriguez, not yet. But, he was able to do, or to give him flashbacks, if you like, to something that had happened to him before, which really wasn't good. And as I say, you mix all those ingredients together, and what you got on the night in the end was a mismatch.
You mentioned there about the starts of the fight, the first 30 seconds. Barry, it's one of the things that we now... I can't remember. You spawned it. It's another one of a Barryism, making him feel something in the first 30 seconds, whether you've got good movement, speed, punching power, or whatever it is. It felt like to me, I mean, and we want to make sure that we do focus on what a brilliant performance that was from Galal Yafai. We'll come on to talk about Sonny Edwards later on in the show, but... When sitting and doing the preview show, we spoke, myself and Andy, about the importance of Galal Yafai getting off to a good start, making a dent early. Within the first 30 seconds of the fight, it was already torrid stuff for Sonny Edwards, wasn't it?
It was, and again, it's nothing. It's similar to Bam. He's boxing nothing like Bam, but I mean, it's similar to Bam in that because he has such a long reach for his size, and he's big. By the way, didn't he look big? He looked
fantastic. He looked great on the scales.
He just looked great all week.
Yeah, just to echo what Andy said there. I mean,
like a man who was bursting out of his skin.
Even on the Thursday night,
get his hands on him.
They had the Thursday night press conference, the old Thursday night presser ahead of the Friday weigh-in. So and with everybody on the card having to make weight, so everybody looked pissed off. But there was a different sort of pissed off about him, where it was kind of like, I just want to get this out of the way to get to the fight. It was not. I'm sure he probably wasn't thrilled about being there, but there was that kind of. impressiveness about him, that Olympic gold medal vibe about him all the way through the build-up, wasn't there? But anyway, sorry, Barry, the early stages of the fight.
Yeah, and I just think, and he knew he had to be aggressive, but keep it long, and I think that's what he did. So he punches correctly. He doesn't shorten the punches, until he hits you, and he must have noticed against Bam. Now, when Bam threw 1-2, he'd take a little step back, but it wouldn't go anywhere. Almost on the back foot, but keep the front foot there, so you're keeping the pressure on him. But he caught Sonny early. And you just see the panic in Edwards' face, like straight away. And I haven't watched it back. I watched one bit back. I didn't watch that bit back, which is weird. Did he actually? Because to me, originally I thought it was a knockdown.
I did watch it back. There's the
bum didn't touch the floor, did it?
No, so he comes off the rope though. Yeah. So I think if the referee calls that,
if that's pure music, then yeah.
Yeah, but I think the referee could call that a knockdown. You can't really complain because he's sort of he's got that elasticity even at that.
But the glove went down.
No knee, no glove. But he did go into, and because they're flyweights, went into the bottom rope, and then he kind of bounced back up, and then it was actually a right hook a couple of seconds after that landed flush that really got Edwards' attention. But anyway, So it wasn't. So it's not a knockdown. I wouldn't have called it a knockdown if that's the case. But I mean, if nothing touches the floor, then you very rarely, unless it goes flying through the ropes. Yeah. But the panic on him, then, and then it was just one-way traffic. I mean, he made a maverick of a fighter look very, very ordinary. I mean, exceptionally ordinary. And Sonny just didn't want to be there. I mean, it was weird, if anything. I thought how much. The fight went out of him straight away. Like, you've been, because once I don't know this guy. I mean, you've been in that predicament. Not saying that you've been in where you don't. I mean,
I
was going to say I'm quite sure you didn't want to be in there when you get.
But so is Sonny. So and you tend to think that would steal you because you've been there before where you've been hurt. And you go, fuck, this is not the good start. This is not what I wanted. It's not what I want to be. But you can fight your way out of trouble, even in defeat. You can, it's in you. So you tend to think that would bolster you a little bit more, especially when you're expecting a fight where it could be, either way. Even if you think you can batter him, even if you thought you could just stand Galal on his head, he knew Galal's fast, powerful, relentless pressure, really fit. So he knew what was coming. But he looked like he didn't know what was coming. He looked like he sort of like volunteered himself into trouble. But then, we that takes away Galal's tactics, which were spot on, I thought. And I think he knew he had to jump at him early. He knew he didn't have, Sonny's a confidence fighter, isn't he? We all know that. So you got to take away his superpower as quick as you can. And his superpower is making you pay. And he jumped on him really quick. And once he did that, and he was a little bit wild then, maybe he could have got him out there. But then, and once he went to the corner and listened to the instructions, come back out, he slowly, in a short space of time, which is really a quality sign of a quality fighter, battered him. Didn't rush anything after that. He just thought that it's a matter of time for I knock him out or stop him or he quits or whatever. And all those things happened. I think Sonny didn't want to know in the end. I know I've skipped right to the end there, but I think he didn't quit. But like I said about me, when I was on the ropes getting punched to pieces, and I heard my dad say I'm going to throw the towel in, and I didn't do nothing because I had the fight punched out to me. And I mean, so you saw to quit without quitting, and Sonny did the same thing. He had the fight punched out of him, and that's the truth. Nothing worked for him. I mean, well, we're going to talk about the corner, aren't we? What happened in the corner? So he didn't really want to be there. I mean, it's the worst place to be. I mean, I was like, the corner did the right thing, I think. Trying to bolster him, trying to bully him to get back into the fight. You got to, but almost like that's like the old slap across the face when you're an amateur, and they go like, no, you had a really bad first round. And they go, what are you doing? That's what our trainer used to do. You can't do that now, he'd be arrested. But like 10-year-old kids, whack.
Grant Smith slapped Junaid Bostan after in the Gordy Russ fight. He slapped him when he got hurt in that fight.
You see a good slap every now and again.
Yeah, you like a
sometimes
good slap.
You need, come on. Don't feel sorry for yourself.
Sure.
You need that, come on.
If there's a time to be serious, it's in the corner of a professional fight.
But you don't think you're going to see it against a guy of this experience, yes.
That was the really alarming thing about it, wasn't it? And it was funny watching it because on TV you could hear what he said really clearly, but I know what it's like doing what you're doing.
You were
obviously.
texting me, weren't
yeah,
you?
yeah. So I WhatsApped
yeah.
you straight away saying, no, he did say it, because I know that from, obviously, when you're commentating on a fight, you've got the arena noise, and on TV you can hear the corner sound way better than you can if you're on the commentary team. But it was quite.
We had three of us heard three different things.
That's it.
Yeah,
it was quite a jaw-dropping thing to hear from someone of that experience at that point of a fight. It was, and the whole thing was really, really interesting, I found, because loads of it just tied into what I wrote about in the book. Loads of it.
I was going to say, shout out, the knockout makes a great Christmas present. I mean, it's the season to be jolly, and it's the season to get yourself the knockout by Andy Clarke.
Santa mentioned it.
There we go. Yeah. He had a pile of them in Lapland.
He went,
for all of
he
you
went,
good
give him away, couldn't
There we go.
He says, you read the knockout? I mean, ooh, me? Prick. I call Santa a prick.
We spoke about it. We touched upon it there about the Bam fight, and we've said in the past, it's not always a given, Andy, that when somebody goes through these hard, torrid fights, there's this kind of, I guess, acceptance that once you've gone through, it's easier to go through next time. That's not always the case, is it?
No, it's not. And it
can be, but it's not always.
Yeah, I remember I was finishing the book this time last year, and one of the last people I spoke to was Bunsey, and I wanted to leave Bunsey till last because I had a few things that I wanted to crystallise that I hadn't quite drawn my own conclusions from yet, and I thought talking to him would help. And we sat down at ringside on December the 23rd for that Knockout Chaos card, and we were talking about different types of stoppage and what they do to fighters. And he said, and Sonny had just been stopped in Arizona, so we talked about it, and he said that will be an interesting one to see how he responds. He said, because in his experience, from watching boxing for the amount of time he's been watching it, probably the most difficult ones to get over are stoppages that happen to fighters who are deep in their career, who have already achieved a lot, and something happens to them that they could never have imagined happening. That doesn't mean that they never imagined losing, because they're realistic fighters. The really good ones are that acceptance of what could happen, but they just don't imagine that they could get beaten in the way they end up getting beaten. And I said last week that I remember talking to Sonny on a podcast with Matt before he won his world title, and he was very realistic, and it was impressive. He said, look, I'm probably going to lose at some point. I'm paraphrasing, but almost everybody does. I'm going to stay at that elite level. That's my plan, and I'll lose fights. But his thinking was that they would probably be points, maybe contentious. You've got to suck that up because you feel like you should have got it. I don't think he ever imagined that somebody could do to him what Rodriguez did to him, in the way that I don't think Ricky Hatton ever imagined that Mayweather could do to him what he did to him. Everybody talks about the Pacquiao stoppage because it was so brutal, but I don't think he thought...
Similar to this.
I don't think he thought that he could get picked apart and beaten up like he was by Mayweather. And they're really hard to come back from, because you've established your identity, you feel like you know who you are, you don't feel like you're invincible, but then something happens that you just could not... You cannot countenance it, and coming back from that is really, really difficult. And that's what happened to him against Rodriguez. I don't feel like he ever thought, and it's not an arrogance or sticking your head in the sand, he had grounds to think that couldn't happen to him, and then it did happen to him. And it's a pretty terrifying thing to happen, to be honest, the damage he received and all the rest of it. And then the fight he had back against Curiel, he's not that guy. And he found his groove, and he did his thing. It was
a good fight for him.
And it was a good fight for him, and he won well. But then he's in with Galal Yafai, and he is that guy. He is going to try and do that. He had to have a good start. If Galal had kind of semi-frozen in the first couple of rounds, and he managed to find a bit of a groove, it could have been different. But he didn't. And all of a sudden, flashbacks. It's you don't always get over it. You don't.
But Galal was in that corner before the fight started. If people have a look back, you could just see on his face, he's just so confident. Yeah. I haven't seen as confident a fighter for a guy in a fight where this could have been potentially a nightmare for him. If Sonny gets it right and he doesn't get it right, then the thing with Sonny, he's never going to knock you out, but he can make you look absolutely like an idiot. He can make you look like you never boxed in your life. That's what he can make you look like. So there's always the potential there of being embarrassed. not just being not being beat up and stopped. You don't mind, like
that's
go back to Sonny again.
Being embarrassed is worse.
I think so. Getting beat up and stopped. I couldn't understand early in my career. I can get fights. I thought, why can't I get fights? I'm like, I can't hurt anyone. Why wouldn't you fight me? And it was that. Yeah. I wasn't as good as Sonny at that, but I mean, they didn't want their fighters to be demoralised.
No, that's it.
They'd either get beaten a hard fight or whatever, getting caught with a shot, whatever.
That's the real fear.
Yeah.
That's another thing I discovered is that real fear is of being humiliated. And being knocked out, fighters do not see that as any kind of a humiliation. That they were much more willing to talk about it, as horrific as it sounds, than people could possibly imagine. It was almost a badge of honour. Yeah, I got knocked out, so what? This is boxing, but if you get given the runaround and get made to look like a tit for 12 rounds, that is just the worst thing.
But Galal looked in our corner like this. Nothing's. What's going to happen is what I want to fucking happen. Whatever I decide goes on is going to. What's going.
I mean, there was a lot at stake in the fight as well, and it looked like one fighter in there on the night really thrived under that, and one fighter really didn't. There was a lot of the build up, this bloodline. There was a lot of family pride. It's a domestic fight as well, so that carries its own little edge, as we all know. It's one thing losing to a man from San Antonio. It's another thing from your patch, so to speak, over on this side of the this side of the pond. We're gonna try and move things along because there's a lot to talk about, but just on Galal Yafai and Sonny Edwards before we wrap things up, where next for Galal Yafai? We mentioned that was some performance from him. Kenshiro Taraji is the WBC champion. As the interim champion, Yafai will be mandatory. The convention is next week in Hamburg.
That's perfect, isn't it?
But that looks like a brilliant fight, Barry.
It does.
One that could get the boxing show to Japan. We'll see.
Here we go.
We'll see.
Here we go.
Remember last year?
We'll see about
We're still waiting on the trip from last year, mate. You remember that, yeah?
Yeah, but we're waiting for a good one.
The
only one was only, what was it, Bam and Australia.
No, Japan would be ace. That's an ambition, definitely.
And fond memories, of course, for Galal Yafai in Japan. Of course, became Olympic gold medalist there. That is a brilliant fight. Kenshiro Taraji obviously just recently moved up to the division.
That's right. And Galal's so big for the weight. I mean, like, he's so big and powerful for the weight that, I mean, I don't fear him against anybody.
I mean, it's important to note, and Galal Yafai mentioned it after the fight. Sonny Edwards, Ring Magazine #1. He wasn't a flash in the pan world champion. Beat some good fighters. No. That was one of the reasons why it was such a massive step up. And all credit to Galal Yafai, Rob McCracken for taking it.
Sorry, mate. I just come back from the zone, so we're all interrupting people.
That's okay.
But I don't. You got to take Sonny for his word, so I will take him for his word. But I don't believe you. I don't think that was a fight that he was going to retire if he won. He said that I was retired and whatever happened. I know training's hard and I know his body, but I mean, if you win that fight though, it's a chance to become another world champion again. He's boxing, so like he hasn't beaten a jaded. I don't think you can't say Galal. You can't say Galal's beaten a jaded fighter. Oh yeah, I've seen that.
That's funny.
That's what it is. But I mean, he beat a good fighter there. We just didn't see that good fighter because he didn't allow him to get into the fight.
Yeah, I mean, so I tweeted after the fight. So I didn't speak to Sonny Edwards at the press conference, so I went to the Airbnb. We were staying at the Airbnb away from the hotel and spoke to him on Thursday night. And he'd mentioned to me that win, lose or draw, he was going to retire, but he did it in a way where it wasn't. Man, this is really bad. Everything. And with Sonny, we all know Sonny, and people watching this will have seen enough of him over the years that very difficult to take whatever he says at face value, particularly 2 days out from such a big fight when he talks about. But he did sort of, and whether or not that is him, because full disclosure, I expect him to box again at some point. That's my opinion. Where
so
he may feel different.
So he should if he can. Yeah, he's young enough. And he's
obviously, I think we saw. We've seen enough of him over the last probably 18 months to 2 years that maybe, I mean, we'll come on to talk about, we're talking about Sonny on the Galal bit, but anyway, kind of talk about what lies ahead from him from a trainer perspective. There was much made about that in the build-up as well, and whether or not he was necessarily that sort of fighter, but the same fighter as he was. People have their own ideas about that. But Thursday, he'd mentioned to me about it, and he'd said, he's like, this is going to be my last fight, right? And I went, what do you mean? And he said, well, he's like, if they want me to come back, I'm gonna, I'll go box Kenshiro, but I'm tired. And he sort of made sort of reference to wear and tear on the body, but it wasn't in a way of like, I'm really struggling. It was kind of still, in his mind, was still going to be enough to win the fight, and was still going to be enough to do this and enough to do that. Whether that's him kidding himself, I'm sure it is, and obviously what he said after the fight would kind of lean towards that way of thinking. But I agree with you completely in a sense of I don't think we can look at this as Galal beat a completely washed fighter who was completely
he looked good
out
in his
of the
last
sport.
fight, Sonny.
Kyrgios is not Jesse Rodriguez and he's not Galal Yafai. But he's a good fighter.
But he's a recent former world champion. By
who
the way.
beat a good champion to become champion
and was doing well in the rematch. By the way, until he got sparked. So he beat certainly beat a world class fighter. Could have been for a world title. So and he looked really good in doing so. And the cut. I mean, the cut wasn't an issue. I thought that was going to open up actually, but it wasn't that sort of fight. But she's beating a good fighter, Galal. We're all looking for Sonny excuses now. I think, and Sonny hasn't looked for excuses. He said his body is training, but I think that's the same for all fighters. every fighter will say the same sort of thing. Training's hard on your body, and the longer you do it, the more harder it becomes. And the injuries in training and the preparation, the way you have to train, is tapered. Dramatically. The older you get, the longer you're in boxing, and in any sport that's the case. But he's still a good fighter. He's still a world-class fighter. He's still the best in the division on paper, and I think he was. And Galal played with him. That's just the bottom line. I mean, I'm a Sonny Edwards fan. You all know that. I'm also a Galal fan. I had no horse in the race there. But I mean, he made it look so easy. I mean, too easy. I mean, what's his name? Tony Bellew.
That fella.
He had a few fights, I think, and he was saying he did it quicker than Bam. And I was straight away going, whoa. And I went, well,
He did.
He did quicker, and it was a lot more one-sided. Don't get me wrong, Bam was always ahead.
I said Bam was more impressive. I was like, because I think there was that, but it wasn't. But just because I think they was trying to talk about Galal going up to super flyweight and boxing Bam.
That's the fact that nobody knows the difference between a minimum weight and a super flyweight nowadays either. And anything in between, they're all the same.
Well, fly the super fly is not a massive jump.
Though. He's not going to move up in weight to go and box him though, is he?
I was thinking we didn't have a chance to say it, but I was thinking, he wants to say he's a big flyweight. I think he could move up and no problem at all and still be competitive. But he's better off waiting for him to go. I mean. All right, that's the biggest money fight, but he's Galal's brilliant, and I think he could beat anybody, and he was fantastic. But Bam, just leave him.
It's all of it. It's like
just leave him.
He's in a different weight class, and he's probably not going to be in that weight for very long. Bam. He's more than likely, I'd imagine.
Let him go.
A couple more fights and move up to bantamweight.
But
it's an easy kind of fantasy fight to discuss because obviously the mutual opponent is Sonny, and the fact that people aren't as well versed in the lower weight classes and pick out the big name and the guys making all the noise in those weight classes.
But just quickly on the kind of post-mortem to the fight and the fact that we have talked quite a lot about Sonny Edwards. I think that's inevitable when you see what happened on the night, because it's not, in my mind, we're not looking for reasons why it happened. We all saw what happened.
It's very
so the discussion point around Galal Yafai is very straightforward and quite brief. He was really, really good. End of story. And we're not looking for reasons why, Sonny's not this and not that. There are just a lot more talking points about Sonny Edwards because of what happened in the corner and what he said afterwards and the spectacle we saw, which was, he was kind of shocking in a way, to be honest. But that is to the credit of Yafai. He did that.
He nailed him.
We're not getting away from that.
We spoke in the build-up that if he could have a good start, and he nailed him in those first 15, 20 seconds. I spoke to Sonny after the fight, and he said he didn't remember that, which I thought was quite telling. The look on his face after 15, 20 seconds, you mentioned there, that shock, panic, being hurt early in a fight of that magnitude with all of the stuff that was around it.
And I just felt like possible start.
Doesn't disregard the issues that Sonny said that he had, but once you get nailed by a big shot 15, 20 seconds into a fight, it's very difficult to come back.
Merciless, Galal. Merciless.
A brilliant performance.
What Galal did for the rest of the rounds after that first round is he kept it long, kept him under pressure, and even when he was not hitting him hard, I mean, I think Galal's just nasty heavy-handed, so even those shots, you feel them, but he just always kept him under pressure, even when he was looking for that big shot, and he just took that little quarter step. Not quite Bam. He can't do a Bam, Galal. No, but he did do. He did a little quarter step to the side, just to mean. So it was hard for Sonny to fire back. And again, Sonny would try and fire back. I said in commentary, one's fighting to win the fight, one's fighting to survive. And that's exactly what it was from
the
first second of the fight. One was fighting to win, one was fighting to survive.
Fighting to keep him off.
Yeah, and I know what that's like. Yeah. And you got to get that mindset that maybe he just couldn't. See, when he boxed Bamson, it was a similar situation. He was a bit more in the fight, but it was a similar situation. Like it got to a point there where you think he's doing okay, but again, one's boxing, one's looks like he's looking to walk through you, and you're looking like you're just trying to keep him off and trying to stay in the fight. This was even a bigger avoid because he looked like he wasn't looking to stay in the fight. He was looking just to survive, not to get drowned. To be honest, and one looked like he was just biding his time to knock you out. But you thought because he's been there, he didn't know what to fight his way through. But this was different. This was different. I think he felt sorry for himself, and that's not a criticism. These words sound harsh, but. I mean,
it's a harsh place, isn't it?
It's similar to what Andy said. That you're not making those like. Usually, we have to, it's a bit of educated guesswork or whatever. That is very much what you saw in front. I mean, you can't not call it as that, can you?
How can you not?
Yeah. And those little bits, I mean, it was almost like he didn't want to be there. He said that, and you could see it. I mean, more so, even now you know what he said. You could see he didn't want to be there, and he didn't look for a way out as such. But those little firing back now and again were almost just, I need to fire back to look like I'm trying to fight. Do you know what I mean? I don't want, like, it was like that. It was, and we've all been in fights where you feel sorry for yourself, but it's usually I've been in fights where I was winning and I've gone, I've had enough. Because I've just been knackered my first 12 rounds. I just said, fuck this. But it's you think that, but actually it's like that moment, and then you fire back with the combination. You do some shit. Sorry, so aggressive. Yeah. But you do something to get out of it because you want to win the fight. But that's on your rise up. You mentioned earlier. That's on your rise up, where you have to have those wars. You have to have those questions. Maybe at this stage of your career, I always thought the Bam fight would have helped him, but maybe at this stage of your career, being in that again, thinking, fuck, not here again. Not this stage of my career. Like, I don't need to be this fight anymore. I don't know. I mean, it all sounds crazy to me. I don't see why you would think that way. But listen, you don't know how you're going to react to you in that situation, and that's why I never criticised Billy Joe Saunders when he quit, or Joe Joyce when he quit. They all quit. That's your pain. You don't know how you're feeling at that time, and you can only react how you feel. Other fights, other times of your life, you're going, I want more. Give it to me. Other times of your life, you just can't take it. And that's just how it is, and it's and timing's everything. And Galal, but either way, whether Sonny was feeling, whatever that Galal put that on him, like we said.
He made him feel like
that. He inserted himself into that fight from the first second. He was in that corner, and he was just like emotionless. But you could see in his eyes. He was
like we said, like Curiel in the previous fight, a very established good fighter. Couldn't make him feel like that. No. Yafai made him feel like that within seconds.
And also, it's worth pointing out that even quote unquote, well, however you want to look at it, quote unquote, the best version of Sonny Edwards, that could have always happened in the sense of you get nailed by a shot like that from a flyweight you can really crack in the first 15-20 seconds of the fight. I don't care how good you are, you could be in the prime of your career. You could still get beaten up by an Olympic gold medalist who's going there from big shots, and that's what we saw on Saturday night.
And this build, like I said, all this build-up being really friendly. I think it was passive-aggressive. Actually, it was all friendly, but Sonny, because of the way Sonny is, and I can't blame him, he's friendly with digs. And he did it with when Galal had that little warm-up fight, and he came on the commentary for Sonny, and he just said, what's the point in this? And he sort of made the point, but the point was, Galal and box fight, he just wanted to get back in the ring and do it, like be a little bit active against a guy who couldn't beat him. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what the game is. But he was going, this is not box. Real fights are real fighters and all this stuff. This little mantra he got. But I wonder whether, I bet you that did Galal a favour. He's thinking, you take the piss out of him. He took the piss out of him in commentary pretty much. That's what he did. Sonny's the biggest wind-up on the planet, isn't he? And he took the piss out of him pretty much. And I bet you that really boosted Galal. I mean, I bet you that got right under the skin. I mean, a guy, if you're a big, powerful for your weight and you can harness your aggression without it consuming you, you're a danger to anybody.
He was very, quite chippy in his post-fight press conference, Galal. And he mentioned about people doubting him and the fact that he was we get it. We've spoken about this a lot about Olympics and people, the amateur credentials, and the fact that Chris McKenna, shout out Chris McKenna, asked him a question in the press conference and said, you're an Olympic gold medalist. You came into this fight as the underdog. You don't see that too often with Olympic gold medalists. Great question to ask because it just pokes enough. And he came out and said, I felt like people were doubting me, and people. I mentioned this to you, Andy, before we came on. I sided with the experience of Sonny Edwards. I felt that over the distance, I felt like he would be elusive enough early on to ride out the storm, and then as the fight progressed, where we've seen Galal in the past when it's gone deep in the fight, he's not been that same explosive guy in the early rounds. That Edwards would manage the rounds and manage to just find his way through and probably just do enough.
I'm going to just do really quickly. If he were the if he's boxing Sonny Edwards now, if Sonny Edwards had that fight, it just got stopped in that fashion against somebody else at world level, and then Galal's boxing Sonny in April, then you fancy Galal.
Yeah.
Because you've seen the wear and tear of Sonny. You've seen Sonny crumble. You've seen, he's still a good fighter, but a fighter now that you can see is massively vulnerable, which is great matchmaking for an Olympian. It's right matchmaking to get you to a world title shot. But even if Sonny has another fight and comes back and does really well, you've still seen that one. And added with the Bam, you go, Bam's a special talent. You put that away, but against and you go, yes. But you never saw that. So do you think Sonny's still at his peak? With that experience, that was that fight like this, experience was probably what if you were going to give Sonny a nod, it was because of the experience at that level.
Yeah, he was the logical pick. I understand what Galal. Galal's him, so he knows what he can do, and he knows how confident he is, and you're never going to understand why anybody would doubt you. But at the same time, he's in with an established, until very recently, world champion with one defeat against someone who's in most people's top 5 pound for pound.
Absolutely.
That was the facts of the matter.
I
did pick him, but I did say when I picked him that I was going against all my normal rules by picking him.
You did, and I didn't. And Galal Yafai reminded me of that after the fight. No, I want to finish this. So sorry, I want to finish this.
He was in the ring saying something to me.
So yeah, he said to me after the fight, people doubted me. Said even you doubted me, didn't you? And I said, yeah, I did. And it was, we spoke about this before. We've all had this, and we've spoken about this in the past, that, we do this fucking podcast and we do the prediction stuff, and we open ourselves up to all sorts of scrutiny from fans and fighters alike and whatever else.
It's personal.
Now, we've had it where...
that's fine.
But we've had it in the past, and we've all had instances where fighters are really not happy about it, and they do take it personally. And we understand, while we can say it's not personal, we all understand that it's personal to the fighter on the night. And I remember him mentioning, people doubted me in the press conference. I was thinking, I wonder if he's talking about me, because I did the interview with Masters. I grabbed 5 minutes and I said, yeah, of course, Rob, no problem. So I started speaking to him. People were doubting you coming into this fight. Did that give you that bit, the chip on your shoulder and blah, blah, blah? He said, yeah, people were doubting me. You were doubting me, weren't you? And I went, yeah. I said, I leaned towards Sonny because of the experience factor, and I felt that, we hadn't seen you box at this level as a pro and doing the rounds and whatever else. He said, well, now you know. He's like, I respect that and I appreciate that. And I wouldn't say he was like, he was still quite, chipper, and he's still chipper. He's still quite chippy, rather. I'm not sure the difference anyway. And he's still quite spiky. That's a better word. But there was that. You thought that. I showed you were wrong. Yeah. I was right. You're right. And do you know what?
Fine.
Massive shout out to Galal Yafai and Gamal Yafai, who was a little bit more spiky than Galal was. Obviously, Galal was very, very focused, but we were wrong. I was wrong. He got it right. And I thought, just finally, thought that.
Yeah, go on.
That was a really professional and really classy thing I felt for Galal Yafai to do. To bring it up, to say to me, look, you said this. I thought you were wrong. I showed you you're wrong. Now you can continue asking me your questions. You know nothing. They did say the last bit. And it was a very Olympic. We said earlier about the preparation and the focus, and that was a really classy thing to do. And one thing that you would expect from an Olympic gold medalist who, didn't take it personally. And it was, I'd just like to say thank you to Galal. Gamal, slightly less thank you because he really did his job.
He's not calling you any names.
No.
He's just.
I really appreciate that because we've all had it where your blood goes cold a little bit when they say you did this and you go, oh shit.
But why shouldn't he?
No, of course.
Yeah. That's it. We get to say what we get to say.
Yeah.
And like we said, it's never personal, but we understand why they would take it personally. If someone said to me, if I don't know how this would work, but if you against you against Darren Fletcher in a commentate off, Darren Fletcher would beat you comfortably. I think. You know, you take it personally. You would take it personally. So I get it. You know, it's a ludicrous example, but at the same time, you just kind of, you know, that's the game, isn't it? We can't possibly complain about people critiquing what we say when we sit here and say what. People commenting on our performance and us not liking it would be mad, given that we're passing comment on other people's performances.
Yeah,
it just wouldn't add up at all.
But they get to show it, and also not picking you to win. I mean, that's what everyone has to remember that. You know, whether I want you to win or not is not based on my picking you to win or not. I might want you to win, but I don't think you're going to win. And also, if sometimes you go, it's not doubting you can't do it. It's just favouring him for one reason. But he was in the ring after when they were doing the verdict. He was leaning over, going, "I knew." And what he said to you, "I knew," and I was thinking, "What the fuck are you on about?" I knew. I said, well, but I knew he's thinking, you know, and it was that I knew I could do it. But no, listen, you knew, you thought you knew, you were right. But I mean, you got to show, and he showed it.
Absolutely right. Yeah, Gamal said to me afterwards in the hotel afterwards. He said, "So you're wrong." He said, "I said, well, now you get to tell me." And he's like, "You're usually quite good." He's like, "But this one, you're really wrong."
I like that kind of interaction. I've more of that.
Absolutely.
More of that. If it's done
really
right, more of that. People made a massive big thing about that conversation I had with Whittaker back at the start of the year. But more of that. Like what fighters, they're totally within their rights to say what they want to say, as long as they do it right. It can be spiky. It can be really spiky, but as long as no one's calling anyone any names or you know, racing to the bottom in that regard, then why not? It's interesting.
I don't know about that.
You know, if you can't have this situation where you know, and this did exist back in the day, I think, where it's kind of, you know, it's almost like a kind of schoolmaster pupil situation where we say what we say and you just have to take it. Why? Why should that dynamic exist? A bit of back and forth is a good thing.
But at the same time, I can't accept like a fighter coming to me going, if I picked him not to win a fight, like I would never cruel about it. You're just picking the guy to win for whatever reasons. And if it's you have a genuine argument, why, and an understandable argument why you think he's going to win, you might be wrong. Who's the shit? And he comes up and starts going, "You know what you're talking about, you."
Oh, but that's personal.
Yeah, that's different.
That is personal. I would say.
He's
basically saying you're bad at your job, you're an idiot. That's personal.
And everybody can get these things wrong. But I said to Gamal, I was like, "I did say if you get off to a good start," and he went, "No, I watched everything you said," and I was like, "There you go." But yes, you're correct. But we're going to have to move on. Look forward to seeing Galal Yafai hopefully against Kenshiro Taraji. I think that's a really good fight. I think he wins that fight as well. And we wait and see what happens next with Sonny Edwards. If it indeed is the last time, I don't think it is, then congratulations on a great career. You know, fantastic fighter, one of the best pure boxers we've had on these shores for a while, since some little ball fella from Cardiff. But yes, a great career, and who knows what happens, what the future holds for Sonny. For Sonny Edwards. Okay, let's talk about the undercard. We're going to have to try and race through this. We're not going to go sequentially. We're going to go for, I think, probably the biggest talking point outside of the main event from Saturday night. Cameron Vuong against Gavin Gwynne. Barry, fascinating to see your view on this. Obviously worked on the broadcast. Yeah, thoughts?
I thought it was close. I know everyone thought... I think it was one of those fights that if you're watching and just watching it, because Gwynne's such a pressure fighter. I mean, first of all, I thought it was a stupid fight to take for Vuong. I thought it was way too early for him. And I think ultimately, I thought Gwynne just did enough to win. So, you know, he got out of jail there a little bit. But he showed loads of good qualities. I think he coped with the pressure quite well. But I still feel, Gavin Gwynne won more rounds than him. But I don't think it was a scream at robbery that I know you thought it is.
I did, yeah. And
I just didn't see it that way. I think it's one of those fights, if you're watching it, you'll go in, Gwynn's walking this. But if you're scoring it round by round, I think it becomes a much closer fight. But a closer fight that I still thought Gwynne did enough to win. But then Vuong getting it, I didn't scream about it because I thought, but if I only got it by Gwynne by 2 rounds. So I think if I only got it by 2 rounds, I can't scream either way. But some of the scores were a bit wide, I think, massively wide. And then you start screaming robbery because the scores are so wide. But I still thought it was close because, again, a lot of stuff that Gwynne does is not it's pressure, but it's not all landing on the target. And if you're watching it more like a judge, I don't watch quite like a judge watches it, but you are closer. If you watch it like a judge watching, he's just looking for punches landed, clean shots landed, then some of this work that Vuong was doing was quality. And then you're looking at quality over quantity. And then that's the same thing with boxing. That's why it makes it very, very controversial, subjective. I hate the fucking word, but that's because the way boxing scored, it always opens it up to things like this. But if you're talking about did the right guy get the nod, then probably not. But I didn't see it as a scream up, and I don't think it's under the corner. Gary Lockett now is a great trainer, a great guy, but he's sort of saying I think now he's changed he felt it was close. Or so he was telling Gavin Gwynne he felt it was close. But then come the fight, at the end of the fight, when everyone's screaming about no, and Lee was up in the ring, and he's saying Twitter got him winning, like he goes by Twitter. And I was winding Lee and because he came up to me and he went, he jumped up and he went, yeah, and he went, you got it. I said, I got it by one.
I saw him come over and he went, what? He's on the ring. What?
Just because he jumped like a lunatic. He went, yeah, I got Vuong by one. And he's going, wow.
I was going to go to Andy first because you mentioned that I determine a robbery, and I don't throw it around often as I can't see how Cameron Vuong wins 6 rounds of that fight. I just can't. I had 3 rounds for him. I felt 2 of the rounds I gave him were close. I felt like one man was the boss in there from the 4th round onwards. After 4 rounds, I had it 2 rounds apiece. But those 4 rounds, I felt certainly 3 and 4, Gwynne made it his type of fight very early in the fight where not the same because obviously Galal Yafai was a lot more emphatic and ran through Sonny Edwards. But I always felt like one man was in charge in there. One man was forcing the action. And I felt like at times Vuong was having to just try and keep him off and punch him off. I felt like Gavin Gwynne... It reminded me a little bit of the second Craig Woodruff fight where it's just these little shots to body. The right hook to the body was nice. A short uppercut on the inside. I felt like he outlanded him. I felt like he outthrew him. And I felt like he controlled the real estate. And that's not, I spoke to Sam Jones after the fight because, I do maintain that I thought it was a clear win for Gavin Gwynne. I haven't watched it back. I will go and watch it back. But all credit to Cameron Vuong for taking the fight. Unfortunately, he's not going to get that now because people are focused on the outcome of the fight. And he did show a lot of the things that you would want to see from him in that fight, albeit in a fight that I did feel like he lost.
It's a stupid fight to take. And the problem is now he's got to take it again. So and again, it's still just as hard a fight, if not harder. I mean, because I think you're going to get with Gavin Gwynne, so you'll do the same thing again, but he'll still get to do it.
Do you think they'll take that right away though?
I'd swerve it if I was them.
I would swerve it forever.
Yeah, people will kind
maybe
of...
it's something you can take up. Sorry, we're all like this. We're all excited to be back together.
But they won't swerve it because they took it in the first place. They shouldn't have. There was no need to take this fight. I don't know why they had to take this fight to accelerate him so much. I mean, I don't know why. He had loads of time to learn. He's still a young kid, loads of talent. And it sounded like a stupid... I fancy Gwynne to win the fight on the offset. I thought this... Like, we were talking...
Yeah, me too. I picked him last week.
I thought
I obeyed my own rules and they dictated that I had to pick him. I mean, how could you not?
This is a crazy fight for him to take. He's going to start well. Didn't start as well as I thought, actually. I think he'll start well because Gwynne's quite easy to hit, I think. And Gwynne's not a big puncher. But he's massive. He's massive. Even for super lightweight, he's massive. And he'll just be on you and he won't stop and he won't stop. And you think you can punch... And unless you're a chain-bitten sort of puncher, you can punch long, and Vuong's more of a sneaky little cute puncher. But again, still those early rounds where you say, like it was Gwynne's sort of fight, but I didn't. It was Gwynne's sort of fight. I still think that Vuong was still having enough success with some nice little bits of work in there. That's what I think. Just because you made your sort of fight, don't mean you're winning that round.
Yeah, sure. I had a couple of rounds each after. I
saw quite a lot of that. I mean, I had a bit of a problem with this one because. My Wi-Fi was playing up, so it was quite hard to sort of watch it properly, but I was listening to what you guys were saying. Obviously, I was watching it on TV. You were both there. I know most people on TV felt like Gwynne won, and a lot of people felt that he won clearly, but what I saw from what I was able to watch was, it got difficult. It got hard for Vuong pretty early on, and Gwynne was relentlessly coming forward. But Vuong was... landing some good stuff. He was still landing some good punches, and how much of Gwynne's stuff was really getting through. That's what I was trying to work out. And they did think it was close because you went into the corner towards the end with Gary, and they did think it was close. Like I say, it's like I didn't really get to watch it properly, but it did seem to me, from the bits I saw uninterrupted towards the later stages, that he looked a bit knackered, Vuong. Yeah, he did. I mean, a bit. That's an understatement. He looked knackered, and he was digging those toes and throwing a shot, but he was landing a good few of them.
I don't disagree. I think he was having a lot of success, or some success, in those rounds. I don't think Gavin Gwynne was battering him, but I felt like he was winning the rounds. No, that's not what happened. Yeah, I felt like he was winning the rounds. At ringside, obviously we were in the media section, nobody around us had anything other than a Gavin Gwynne win. I was sat just behind, not just behind you, just the other side.
Yeah, so
where you were sat.
Like an idiot section.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I got the feeling from listening to you and Darren and Mike that come the end, none of you were really sure. Basically,
we don't
Vuong started well. It became more Gwynne's fight, and then
it was Gwynne's fight. It was Gwynne's fight, like you said, from it was Gwynne's fight from early on. His sort of fight, but I thought Vuong coped with it reasonably well. And then in the end, Gwynne did take over. Like obviously,
Vuong hung in there and never went under. Like he was never kind of like just not doing anything.
I agree, but I don't think he did enough to win those rounds.
Yeah,
and I certainly can't see him winning 7 rounds. Was it who had it? Was it Mark Lyson who had it? 97.
There was a 7-3, wasn't there?
There was a 7-4. Because there was one round even 97, 94. Yeah.
But you would say 7. I thought it was 7-5 to Gwynne, which is much
6-4, 10 rounds.
Yeah,
I had 7 because the 10-10.
Yeah, 6-4. Yeah,
6-4. Yeah,
so,
but I had it around wider, and I felt like I can maybe swallow 6-4, but I feel like again 2 of the 3 rounds that I gave Cameron Vuong were close rounds. But having said that, I mean, it's obviously the result and the kind of the subsequent fallout from it is not an ideal thing. But I kind of go back to what I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago. The things that you want to see from Cameron Vuong in that fight, like, he was knackered in the 4th round of that fight against a guy who really knows how to fight, knows how to put the pressure on, knows how to work you over to head and body, and he didn't look for a way out. And I thought he won the 9th round, and he had a good 10th round, but I thought Gwynne won the 10th round. So he showed all of those things that you're kind of wanting to see from a prospect in a step up like that, albeit I thought that he lost the fight. So if you're in the Vuong camp, you're probably looking at that and going, okay, maybe that was a little bit of a step up too quick, but we know he's got the bollocks for it now. He's got the minerals. He's shown that. Let's bring him back at a slightly lower level, get a few fights under our belt, and then take the Gavin Gwynne rematch.
Yeah, I mean, you can take the rematch if you want, but by the time you've taken a couple more, by the time you've taken a couple more, that kind of, people, that outcry and people calling for the rematch has subsided, and people probably stopped caring. So you can probably just swerve it all together if you want to.
Like Dennis McCann and Baluta.
Yeah.
Like they waited a little bit for that. Didn't wait too long, enough that the people who were still pissed off about it were still interested in it and still knew about it and were still calling Baluta's name around Dennis McCann. Went in there, a little bit more experience on him, a little bit more wear and tear for Baluta, and he got the job done. And I think something similar to that, maybe after 9 or 10 fights, they could do it again.
I gotta say, I hate commentating on Welsh boxers. Because I generally don't care who wins, because they're Welsh. You think you want them to win, and till I don't know them. Like I don't know any. I don't know Vuong. I don't know Gavin. I've said hello to both of them. I mean, I've lived in England for bloody 25 years, unfortunately. But I'm trying to breed you out. It's not working. But
it's having a good go though.
But it's because you end up trying not to sound biased to the Welsh guy. So I know, like PE teachers, when you have a football match, your PE teacher, and you give the other school every decision. Yeah. You end up, you think, oh, was I like that? Was I pro Vuong? Because I didn't want to sound like, if I'm pro Gwynne, I just sound like I'm biased towards the Welsh guy. So you try not to. You almost like go the other way. I wasn't quite sure. I wasn't quite sure how it worked out. But I mean, I'm never a fan of commentating on Welsh boxers, which is crazy because I love watching them fight because they're always in good fights, except for me. But this is Gavin Gwynne's value for money, and he is what he is. But I mean,
and he loses. No, he lost the fight. But he loses nothing from that. He still gets another fight at 140.
But to him, he does though, because
of course,
that to him, that's not losing another like a European title fight. That's losing to a prospect. So it's hard. Like that makes it a harder road for him now, and also for the guy who's not, didn't he have to go back to work recently? Which is, I don't know why any boxer doesn't work.
I was going to say, it wouldn't be a surprise.
But so it's again, it's like, when do I get another shot? And also, like, Vuong might avoid him. You can't blame him, and there's people they should not the box themselves, but his camp should avoid him. And then you just go, I ain't gonna get that to make that. I'm not gonna be an opportunity to make that right this time because they're not gonna give me the opportunity to fight him again. So where does he go then? And then he's not gonna be mandatory for the European title shot or build up, and he's got to try and go through the back door for less money. It affects him dramatically, unfortunately.
Yeah, it does.
But I didn't think it was a robbery. Like you thought it was a robbery.
I did, yeah.
I thought Gwynne won, but I didn't think it was a screamer.
I just can't. Again, it kind of, for me, it's if you cannot, and I can't. From watching it live, and I will kind of preface it with the fact I will go back and watch it again, purely out of my own interest, and I'm a loser with nothing better to do, to go back and watch it, and I just couldn't see how you get 6 rounds for Cameron Boy. I just couldn't for the life of me. It's not to say that he won't prove to be a good fighter, and it was very, very deep, a very, very deep test.
Watching stuff back on the TV, if your first look at it is live on the night, won't really help you.
No,
potentially
because you
not.
didn't see
I'll
it.
do it anyway.
That's not how you saw it when you saw it in real
I'll do
time.
it anyway. But like when you said it, like because people were saying that to me about the shots.
I watch fights back because I just want to watch it back because it was a good fight, or
something you missed or something.
I want to kind of check in and listen to the broadcast and see like how we all did, that kind of thing. But I never really watch anything back now if I've watched it from ringside
and to try and
see if I was right, because that's not what I saw the first time around, and that can never be recreated.
Yeah, that's a good point. And sort of to that end, which is why people were saying, I don't think people knew I was there either, because people were like, yeah, but maybe it's different live. I was like, I'm sat right behind one of the judges, mate. And I did feel
just replaced not.
Yeah, and I did feel like with people saying about those shots, how much were they landing and how much I thought they were landing, and I thought he was throwing that like lead uppercut, that kind of corkscrew uppercut a lot, Cameron Vuong. I didn't think that was landing a lot. I think it looked great, and I think it made a great whistling sound, but I don't think it was landing. But anyway, moving on to talk about the rest of the undercard.
With a pizza.
I was secretly at home. The doppelganger with the Boxing News robot was there in my stead. But anyway, Andy, going to come to you first. Conor Walker against Lewis Ritson. I think we all expected a really, really action-packed fight. Two guys who like to throw hands and like to get in there and let them go. I think Barry wasn't here. We both picked Conor Walker to get the job done. Tremendous resolve from Lewis Ritson, who showed bags of heart and bags of courage to stay in there till the end, but just outgunned by the naturally bigger man in Conor Walker on the night, I felt.
Yeah, he was, and that was kind of what happened just sort of all the way through, really, wasn't it? Yeah. It wasn't... He was always, like you say, Ritson was always competitive and showed a lot of grit, but he was never really, harsh to say, he was never really in it, but to an extent he wasn't ever really in it.
Winning the rounds.
No, that's it.
Yeah.
He made Walker work for everything.
He did. He absolutely did do that.
And he hurt Walker as well. With 45 seconds in the final round, he hurt him. That would have been some turn.
But he knocked him back a few times as well. I mean, Walker takes a great shot. We've seen that, didn't we? Like in his last fight, but I mean against Crocker. But that's what I thought. I thought that Walker was going to stop Ritson before, because I thought Ritson is the bigger puncher of the two, but naturally smaller, and Walker, because he takes such a good shot and he's relentless, and the way Ritson fights, like Ritson doesn't really move well, doesn't really box that well. He did Saturday. Yeah, he boxed really well, didn't he? But I think I remember watching Walker against King Gardner. There was a Channel 5 show, and he got, and it was a really close fight, but Gardner boxed him and beat him. And I thought, you're going to outbox Walker, but so. People at Crocker are always going to have a hard night with him, and you thought Lewis Ritson, it was the fight that he would prefer, rather than someone's going to dance around, someone that's in front of him. But I thought the size and the energy and the chin of Walker was just a nightmare for Ritson at this stage of his career. He's going to hit him with loads of shots. He's not going to move, and he's just going to, I thought after 6, 7 rounds, I thought Ritson was just going to be knackered, and Walker would just be relentless and stop him. But Ritson was brilliant. Ritson, if anything, showed he got loads left in him, actually. I think he boxed really well, but not enough. Walker's just a force of nature, isn't he?
You just can't, and like from my perspective with Ritson, you remember what a force he was down at lightweight, and it's just difficult to see where he picks up a win at welterweight, where he picks up a meaningful win. And if he's going to, it's 3 defeats in a row now for him.
But he'll beat some prospect coming up. I mean, you tape. I mean, if he can what his ambition is. I think that's the problem.
That's it.
Where does he think? Because at lightweight they were talking about him going big things. You got the European level.
Geordie Golovkin.
What's that?
Remember the Geordie Golovkin as he was dubbed.
But I mean, once he was up, when he was at the super lightweight, he wasn't the same, and even at European level, like at lightweight, he wasn't really he's never going to get the world level. I don't think. And, there was a talk of him being there, maybe, but it's just. Where he sees himself going, he can still be competitive. I think he is still competitive. He's on the losing end. He's still a competitive guy, and whether he's still a draw in Newcastle, I'm not quite sure anymore. Because it was a long time ago when he thought he was selling loads of tickets. So yeah, but if he still wants to fight, he's still competitive. But he is going to be the guy who's going to be the stepping stone for. But with that, if he's happy with that, and he's still earning decent sort of money, then he can still, he'll upset a few prospects. But seasoned fighters like Walker now, who just take such a good shot, then they're always going to be a hard night for him. Good fight though.
What would you like to see next for Conor Walker, Andy? Obviously had that brilliant fight with Lewis Crocker, which could have gone either way. I think we all kind of edged that one to Conor Walker on the night. Looks like Paddy Donovan and Lewis Crocker eventually will be getting things on. But a lot to like about Conor Walker. You know what you're going to get from him every time. He's going to do a few tickets. He's going to come forward. Barry mentioned that great chin, throws a million punches. Where's the next fight for him?
I quite fancy seeing him in against Akko Esserman.
Yeah, good fight. Well done.
That'd be a good fight.
That'd be a good one. Because Akko is, I wouldn't say he's reinvented himself necessarily, but he's had some crowd-pleasing performances recently. Not that he was never not good to watch, because he's always been absolutely relentless, hence the nickname. Won that Lonsdale belt outright. He'd fancy it, I think.
That's a really good fight, actually. It's a really good fight. That's the best fight for us.
Yeah, definitely for us. Yeah.
For us. Yeah. We want to be in that fight, but No,
but I think they would.
Yeah, they would.
That's
the
thing.
Part of the reason.
I mean, that's the way. What I think. Esserman, but I think Walker definitely. I think he thrives on that. He doesn't want something like Congo. He doesn't want that.
He doesn't want
that. Yeah, I mean, he fancied walk through Congo, but I don't. I mean, but that's the last thing he wants. Somebody with a good jab, fast feet, and all that. That's
good fight in a different way though for us.
It's an interesting fight. But
contest.
But yeah, he wants a fight where he got a guy in front of him that he can just outwill him.
I mean, another kind of stylistic matchup. I still don't know really what he's up to at the minute. Is Marku?
Yeah, he'd be too. Yeah, I think the energy would be too much for Marku.
I'd say so, probably.
But that's the kind of fight
the kind of fight that Marky would want, and with someone like him, he does bring quite a lot to the table. He sells tickets, and
he'll sell the fight,
and he will sell the fight.
And when he gets in there, he wants to get down to business. Okay, moving on. We'll try and fly through the last quick couple on Saturday's show in Birmingham. Kieran Conway picked up the Commonwealth middleweight title with a split decision win over Ryan Kelly. I think me and Andy, and I'm sure you agree, Barry, expected a kind of a nip and tuck fight. Ryan Kelly, obviously a very good fighter, only lost to very good fighters. Kieran Conway kind of exists in this really frustrating world where sometimes he looks like Kieran Canelo Alvarez, and other times he looks like, not Kieran Canelo Alvarez, should we say. Kind of a frustrating fight to watch. And again, it was kind of a classic Kieran Conway fight, wasn't it, Andy, where there were flashes of brilliance and then he kind of drifts at times, and all credit to Ryan Kelly for making it competitive, but ultimately Kieran Conway just edging by decision.
Yeah, it was kind of what we expected it to be, and it's still difficult to know whether we're being a bit unfair on Kieran Conway, because
it is a compliment, by the way.
Yeah, it is a compliment. It absolutely is a compliment. And Ryan Kelly he's a good fighter, and he's now dropped some close ones. Conway won on Saturday. I wasn't in any real doubt about that. But he's been in some competitive fights, Kelly, against some really good guys, and he's only lost to good fighters, and he's sticking at it. So I really hope that he's someone who keeps going. He's already had to show plenty of grit and perseverance, but he keeps going, and he gets there in the end, wherever there is for him. He wins something that kind of satisfies him and makes him feel like it's all been worth it, because I do feel like he's that kind of pro who deserves it. With Conway, I'm still sort of fascinated to see where he's going to get to, because I wouldn't say everything seems like it's there, but it just always feels like there's a bit more to come.
Well, he needs like 3 rounds, 4 rounds before he does stuff. That's frustrating about Conway. He's massive for the weight, isn't he?
He's huge.
He looked like 2 different weights, didn't he? It was ridiculous.
I can't believe it used to make 54, not that long ago.
Mad, isn't it? But he got a lovely jab. And then when he started using the jab in the second half of the fight, he made it his fight. But up until that point, Kelly was faster, busier, was beating him to the jab, which was the better fighter, I thought, in the early stages.
Yeah.
Much better. I think, but the problem with him, I think he wanes quite quickly, I think. I mean, he does the same sort of movements.
So he's got that style as well that can burn.
Yeah.
He's always very jerky, very...
But, but also, with them sort of movements, you should be, if you're training like that all the time, then that's almost like a natural thing. It shouldn't really affect you too much, except when you start pushing your punches a bit more. But he wanes a little bit down the stretch. And that's something he needs to work on. But once Conway started using his jab, why be that big and tall? You got to stand when you're that big like that. You should use that size to intimidate them. I mean, you might not be a massive puncher, but I think he can punch enough. But that jab should be a bam, bam, bam. I think he's worried that jab is something they work off. Sometimes being big and tall, sometimes you do that jab because it's a long way to come out, it's a long way to come back, and I think sometimes they often, once you throw the jab, you get caught. You tuck it away and don't use it again. And I think that might be something that's in his mind. But I mean, if he learns to step in with that jab, bump in and out, like Kelly was stepping in with his jab early in the fight, bam, 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 like that with his feet. And I thought, it's going to be a hard night for Conway, who just wanted to tuck up and try and counter punch. But he needs to be proactive with all his work. He wants to go straight away, stamp his front foot in the centre of the ring, and go bam, 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 just straight shots. Don't throw uppercuts and hooks for 4 rounds. I mean, if he boxes that way, he's a difficult man for anyone to beat, just for size alone. Because his structure keeps his structure's pretty good. He keeps his shape well. There's a lot of good things. He's tough. He tucks up nice and tight as well. So he does a lot of good stuff. But he just doesn't do it until after 4 rounds.
or he only does it in pockets throughout the fight. We were talking about it in the preview section, that there were just moments in the fight where you think, oh wow, and then he kind of goes missing for a little bit, or allows the other guy to get a bit of a head of steam again, and you just think like, where is it? But we've said it so many times now in his fights, and kind of again, if he is watching this, I don't know if he is, the Yafais will definitely probably turn off by this point. Fair play. But I just don't know where it goes. But it is a compliment in a sense of when he does those things and when he does use that, he looks like a very, very good fighter. It's just he only seems to do them for maybe half of the fight.
But that's not a compliment. I mean, I think you see it as that, but I mean, it's a massive flaw. I think you can't concentrate for 3 minutes of every round, certainly for 12 rounds. It's an impossible task. But that's the concentration is part of your fitness. I mean, I'm not saying he's not fit, but you have to work on that. I mean, you have to keep that focus. And sometimes it's not that you haven't got the energy. It's maybe your brain starts wandering. Maybe I don't know what the reason is. Maybe that's what it is. But also Kelly's a good fighter, and you think he's going to be high, and if he knows him, he's going to be high energy. I thought I'd just be really safe for those early rounds and not give away too much of a target. I don't know, but I think he needs to be able to. You got to maintain more of a work ethic, and be busier for a longer stretch of every round. I mean, you're going to take gaps in a round, of course, but maybe do the good work first, then take a gap and try and finish strong. That's what you should try and do, really. If you're going to take a lull in a round, make it sort of like after 2 minutes.
That's a really interesting thing that you've picked up on there, though, about about concentration, because you have to be. If you get knackered, then your concentration will go because you're starting to think about different things. But if you're fit enough that you can do it physically, that's not enough. As Barry mentioned there, you've got to be able to train your brain to be able to concentrate for as much of that 3 minutes as you possibly can. Be constantly vigilant, but also relaxed, so that you're not burning nervous energy. It's a really interesting thing. It reminded me of a book I read a while ago, Gene Tunney's book, who was world heavyweight champion back in the 1920s, beat Jack Dempsey, and people who like the history will recognise the name, obviously. But he just came up with a really good analogy for it, and he said that he learned how to kind of relax and concentrate as much as he did in the ring when he was given sentry duty in the First World War, like protecting big marquees full of hot air balloons in England, actually, at the end of the First World War. And he said sentry duty, you're doing it for 6 or 7 hours. Now, if you're going to stand there in a state of high alert, jumping out of your skin every time a twig cracks, you will go mental in 10 minutes. You've got to perfect the art of being constantly vigilant but relaxed. And that's the only way that you can get through it. And that's a really hard thing to do.
You're going to start seeing boxing managers sending their fighters now to do national service.
Unless you're paranoid like me.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Wouldn't be good for him out there.
Paranoid.
Wouldn't be good for him out there. Okay, right. We are going to move on, but before we do, just a quick roundup of the rest of the card. Troy Jones retaining the English light heavyweight title with a 10-round unanimous decision win over Michael Stevenson. Hamza Udin, 6 rounds in the bank against Ben Norman. Thought that was quite a competitive fight. A lot to like about Hamza Udin, but Ben Norman, I thought, did himself proud. Aaron Bowen picked himself up off the canvas to score a 5th-round stoppage win over James Todd, and we saw the professional debut of Taylor Bevan, 2022 Commonwealth Games silver medalist.
That first half of the card I thought was really good. It was a good card.
I thought the card itself was really good.
That was the best before the bell on.
Yeah.
That's the best before the bell I've done.
It was good.
Just a good mix, really, wasn't it? Of people like Taylor Bevan, Hamza Udin is someone I've had my eye on for a while, and
Ibrahim
Suleiman, and of course a returning Callum Smith.
Wow.
First on
boxing at like 4:30,
4:15, yeah.
But he understands the worth of him getting out. He had to get out. He'd be
similar to who we were talking about earlier, the Galal Yafai fight. I mean,
Had a bit of everything, didn't it?
Yeah.
Local ticket sellers, the crowd looked good.
They stayed as well, which was good.
It looked like it sold pretty well.
Yeah, for the main event they stayed because there was a lot of big ticket sellers on the undercard. So I know people were kind of like, you were always wondering like, okay, well, are they going to go?
And that's good because that was Galal Yafai's first kind of big Birmingham coming out in a way, wasn't it?
And because I was at the Tommy Frank fight and it wasn't like that. Just say.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't like that.
I saw Taylor Bevan sold a few tickets, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody did. There was everyone on the card in their own way kind of sold.
He's got these with Brian Peters, Taylor Bevan, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's a good sign in itself, isn't it? Brian doesn't mess about, does he?
Right guy to be with.
Absolutely doesn't. But yeah, a good night of boxing in beautiful Birmingham. Looking forward to getting back there sometime soon. Okay, we're going to stick with the UK as we look ahead to this weekend for the preview section. We're only going to do main events. There's 3 shows this weekend, so we're just going to do the main events before we wrap things up. And Barry, going to come to you first for Denzel Bentley against Brad Pauls. Brad Pauls, of course, coming off that brilliant win over Nathan Heaney to pick up the British middleweight title, goes in. I mean, this is a world-level fight. You look at those WBO rankings. This is something that could have potential ramifications on the world scene. World-level fight, I know what you're going to say. But a fight that could have some sort of impact down the line.
Yeah, it's a real hard fight to call because, it's a really hard fight to call. But because I fancy Pauls, actually, but I can see Bentley catching him with the right hand because he has that left hand low all the time, and I just think if you invite that to Bentley too long, then if he commits that right hand and catches you, you're done. So I can see Bentley knocking Pauls back out at any stage of the fight.
But you're picking Pauls.
I'm sticking Paul. Yeah, I am going to pick Paul. I think he's on a really good roll, and I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure. I think it's a really good fight actually. I think with Bentley, he's so like there or there, isn't he? There's no middle ground with him. He's had a really good or relatively not so good. No, I wouldn't say poor, but I mean, he's.
I mean, you're absolutely right. The version of him that boxed Nathan Heaney is very different to the version of him that boxed Shanabek or any of those guys. Marcus Morrison, Kieran Smith.
So I think whatever. If the version of him that goes up against Heaney is still a hard fight for Pauls. I think if you get the very best of Denzel Bentley, then Pauls is going to be in trouble. You would think because he can box a bit as well. But I fancy Paul. Fancy Brad Pauls. Yeah, on points. I don't think he's going to stop Bentley, but I just think he'd outwork him. I think he'd have a lot of movement in front of the target. That might just take it with the jab of Bentley, and then without the jab, then he's got to overreach with the right hand, and he might just be able to, if he can time that just in and out with the feet and counter off that, he just might take a bit of the sting of Bentley, or he gets knocked out with that right hand, nice long right hand, doesn't get it right. So that's the way I see it.
There we go. Right, moving on to Andy.
One of 16 variables that might happen.
Yeah.
No, but there are. I mean, I'm the opposite. I think Bentley, but I do find it a difficult one to pick because he has been up and down, Denzel Bentley. But I think I think if they're both at their best, then he is better, and I'm going to assume that they will both be at their best. But I think the gap has narrowed. A couple of years ago, I'd have picked Denzel Bentley quite clearly, but Paul's won the title against Heaney, and you grow with becoming a champion. You see it all the time. It just does happen. And another aspect to it that I find quite interesting is that it was a card that I covered, so it's why I remember it well. When Bentley beat Linus Adofia to win the vacant title, to win it back after he'd lost it to Felix Cash, Brad Pauls was on the undercard against Ryan Kelly and won an eliminator. So at that point, Brad Pauls would have been looking at Bentley as somebody he was going to fight. So he'd probably been looking at him and thinking about him mentally for a while, whereas I don't think Denzel Bentley has been thinking about Brad Pauls.
Janabek, Hamza Shiraz.
Exactly. And that can make a difference sometimes, can't it? Yeah. And I mentioned this to Denzel a few weeks ago. We were working together on Box Nation, and he said, yeah, I'd not really thought about that, but yeah, he probably has been looking at me as someone he's going to meet and maybe analysing a bit or maybe not. I don't know whether he watches loads and loads of boxing or how he goes about things, but it's a really good fight. It is a really good fight, and again, it's a good card. But I fancy Bentley.
It's a big loss for Bentley, though, isn't it? Because after the Janabek fight, he thinks he's world class. I mean, not saying he's not, but I mean, because he did so well, though still in defeat, he did so well that he'll think this is where I belong, and it's hard to readjust your mindset for that. And he's done it quite well, but I mean, he loses to Pauls, to him. Then all his aspirations, but even though they're both highly ranked, but still, realistically, this is a domestic scrap. That's what it is.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a really good domestic scrap.
It's a belter.
But to lose him, then he has to reassess where he is. So, like, I mean, for Pauls, he can still go, well, I've just lost to a guy who almost won a world title.
Yeah,
so,
not that it's relevant in any way, but they actually train really near each other. Terry Stewart's gym's out in Epping, and so is the new Peacock, Martin Bauer's place, and they're both. I've been down to both, and that's an interesting part of the world. That, yeah, it's not really relevant to anything, but it just occurred to me there.
Good fight, though, isn't it?
So,
it's a really good fight. British middleweight title fight.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah, and it is a fight where I mentioned earlier on, kind of sort of tongue-in-cheek, but it is true. Like, this is a fight that the winner of this fight could find himself boxing for the WBO title pretty soon. They're both loftily ranked. We don't know what's going on still. I mean, Janabek is kind of in between wanting to get a big fight, maybe moving to 168. Who knows?
That's where you gotta go.
Yeah, who knows what's going to happen with him moving forward. I mean, we were going to do a little bit, but we'll kind of just go with the prediction straight away, I guess. I guess for this fight, probably lean towards Bentley, but I mean, it is a very, very difficult fight to pick purely because of where we've seen Bentley in the past. We've seen his last couple of fights. He looked like he's got his mojo back. Stopped Danny Dignam, stopped Derek Asazi, both in emphatic fashion in a knock. The Derek Asazi knockout, one of the knockouts of the year. That right uppercut was fantastic.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. But Brad Pauls is a man in form. I think he really learnt from that fight with Tyler Denny where he didn't show up by his own admission.
Yeah, that was a big night for him, that.
And I think he gained a lot from the first Nathan Heaney fight, which is a fight that he believed that he won, and obviously he went and left no doubt in the return match. But I agree with you, Andy, in a sense of, take best for best and the best version of each fighter against each other. I would probably lean towards Bentley. It's awkward, carries good power, has got decent movement as well. I do feel like sometimes Brad Pauls can be a little bit flat-footed, a little bit stiff and rigid. And against somebody like Bentley, who's a little bit more unconventional and carries power, I think that could be the difference on Saturday night at Wembley Arena. Just flicking through the card, heavyweight fight could be quite interesting to some people. Sol Dakers against David Adley for the English heavyweight title, like that one. Sam Noakes against Ryan Walsh. Ryan Walsh, the evergreen.
It's a good fight, that is.
Ryan Walsh still in there after that stunning knockout win. He had stopped Reece Moulding around, which was certainly one for the books. And we see the heavyweight debut of one Lawrence Okoli against Hussein Mohammed. So yeah, really looking forward to that. And there's kind of the usual suspects, so to speak. It's Royston Barney Smith, Sean Noakes, brother of Sam, George Crotty making his professional debut as well. So yeah, looking forward to that in Wembley Arena, although I'm not going to be there, so I'll be looking forward to it from home. Okay, up next in America, Andy, going to come to you first for the rematch that I'm not sure anybody was really asking for, but I will watch it again because it's going to be a very good one. Emmanuel Navarrete against Oscar Valdez. One of the fights of the year, I thought, last year. Won in pretty clear fashion by Emmanuel Navarrete. But it feels like going into this fight, I'm not really too sure what to expect from him. I mean, I think his last couple of performances against Robson Conceição and most recently against Denis Berinčić, I do wonder where Navarrete is at this stage of his career.
Yeah, I think that's fair comment. I thought the first fight, yeah, he won, and there was no debate about that. So as you say, it's not really a rematch that people have been clamouring for, but now it's here. Given what Navarrete's been up to in the interim period, it's kind of a better fight than you would have imagined that it probably would be, or it's more appealing. It's more appealing than you might have. That was previously, certainly. So yeah, there are question marks around him for the reasons you just mentioned. I mean, Valdez has been at this a long time now, hasn't he?
He's only 33.
I think he's a double Olympian, Valdez, which for a Mexican is really unusual.
And he turned pro in November 2012.
Yeah,
that is a long time. 12 years as a professional.
Yeah, it is. And I've always been a fan. I remember that monsoon in the
quick fight.
Yeah, in the quick fight, and he's always been good to watch. And somebody you looked out for, and he's had a good career. He's got there, hasn't he? Basically, I think he'll struggle with Navarrete again. To be honest, that would be my thoughts on it.
Barry, I previewed this in this week's Boxing News, available this weekend, and I felt this week rather.
You did everything, aren't you?
Yeah, it got me working, man. It's terrible. I had my feet out for a year. It was awful. But anyway, I kind of mentioned in that Oscar Valdez is a lot more of a suitable style for Emmanuel Navarrete than a Conceição or than a Berinčić.
Of course he is.
Which is maybe why we're seeing this.
Well, that's certainly Berinčić. Going into lightweight was an experiment that didn't work for.
He looked like he'd been on the Tebbutt giant pizzas, Navarrete. That night, mate.
But because he's a high energy fighter, isn't he? And his herky jerky style is not really for someone who's a bit more who slides into the distance like Valdez. He's always going to struggle with it. But Navarrete, he puts himself in precarious situations as well. And Valdez, who's got a wicked left hook and plenty of power, even up at super featherweight. I didn't think he'd be able to make the transition from super bantam all the way up that he has. Valdez, to be fair, I thought he was going to be like one of those guys who was really strong at super bantam.
Navarrete.
No, but Valdez as well.
Valdez was feather, not super bantam. Navarrete.
Oh yeah, he was. Yeah, sorry, yeah.
But still, it's not. He wasn't a particularly big featherweight.
But I just don't think I just wasn't sure that he'd be able to move up in weight and be that effective. It's because he boxed quick. That's all. I forgot.
Yeah, quick was welterweight at the time. So
probably
flew you out. Yeah, he blew the weight by 6 pounds or something.
No, that's what I mean. I remember he couldn't make the weight, and I just got confused that he was super bantamweight. But Navarrete was always too big for the weight. I thought, it's amazing he stayed the weight so long. But he's adapted. I just think he's going to be it's still a dangerous fight though for Navarrete. See, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets tagged and gets hurt, but I can't see if he doesn't win the fight again. It's still a great fight.
Valdez looked pretty well in his comeback fight against Liam Wilson. It's interesting for me with Navarrete because when he was down at super bantamweight, he was such a problem. He had those fights with Isaac Dogbe. And he was just a machine at super bantamweight. He was so much bigger than everyone. It was when he was boxing every 6 or 7 weeks as well. Just defending his title constantly on those top rankers. He had the Fury fights. He was on all of them.
But he was just too big, wasn't he?
But as he's gone through those weights, and we definitely saw it at lightweight, he's never a lightweight.
No.
As he's gone up through the weights, he has surrendered those natural physical advantages, and he's become less effective and less busy, particularly thinking of the Robson Conceição fight. He was a lot less busy in that fight, and part of that is Conceição's style as well. Olympian control of the distance, he's a bit awkward, and Shakur Stevenson mentioned about Robson Conceição, so people think that he's no good. He's just very good at what he does.
Yeah.
He does this, and he does that, and it's very difficult to do anything with. But in Oscar Valdez, you've got somebody as well who's naturally smaller, somebody who's going to come forward. He's not going to be difficult to find.
But he's well schooled.
Yeah, he is well schooled, and it's kind of why, like Andy said there, what we've seen from Navarrete, you know what you're going to get from Valdez. He's going to turn up. He's going to be trying to win the fight from the first place. He's going to be throwing shots. He's got good chin. He doesn't mind going in the trenches. He's somebody who's been there, seen it. I think Quigg broke his jaw, didn't he, when he blew the weight. So he's a tough man. And if Navarrete, as we've seen from all sorts of fighters over the years, he's gone, I've done this and I've made this money, and what was he doing at lightweight? If there is that diminished flame, you would expect Oscar Valdez to probably find it at some point. It just, I think a lot of this fight does depend on what Navarrete has left, how he sees himself. If it's just, okay, the Barinchuk fight is obviously going to be weight related to some extent, but if it's also weight related because he couldn't be fucked to make the weight and he just went through the motions, and any of that carries on into this fight, Oscar Valdez could be the one to unseat him. He could.
I mean, Navarrete's got to box at a high pace. He's got to be busy. That herky-jerky style only works is when he's active with his feet and with his hands. So, like, if he slows down with that, then he just becomes a guy who's walking around waiting to get hit, theoretically. Yeah. So, but I still think that style, is something that Valdez will always struggle with, and so I still think that Navarrete gets the win.
Okay, right. We very, very quickly before we move on to the other show this weekend. Rafael Espinoza against Ramirez 2 on the undercard of Navarrete versus Valdez 2. That very much is a fight that we've been clamouring for. The first fight was absolutely unbelievable. Rafael Espinoza, all 7'5" of him, has really proven himself. He is enormous, that man. Has really proven himself to be. Wasn't a flash in the pan performance. I thought he was excellent in his last fight as well. Andy, going to come to you for a very quick breakdown as the co-president of the Ramirez and Chris Eubank Jr. fan clubs.
You might win a world title, Eubank.
Certainly one of them.
He might fight for one.
He might fight for one. But anyway, on Ramirez, a hard fight. I mean, this you're a 6 foot featherweight who throws 80 to 100 punches around with pop in either hand is a very, very tall order, no pun intended. But somebody in Ramirez, we know how talented he is. You give him a chance this weekend. He's always got a chance, but you're backing him to get the job done?
Unfortunately, I'm not sure I am, because I've been really impressed with Espinoza, basically. And with Ramirez, although he hasn't had that many pro fights, he's been at this a really long time. When you're an amateur with Cuba, you start when you're knee high, and it's tough. The regime there is pretty brutal in coming up through the national team, and I don't think the tank is empty or anything like that, but I just feel like Espinoza right now is the wrong guy for him.
Interesting, Barry.
Sadly,
I think
I'm not saying he can't win, but if I'm going to be asking me to pick a winner, I think Espinoza is probably going to win again.
I think Espinoza. But I think Ramirez can stop Espinoza.
He had him. The knockdown he scored in the first fight was one of the, you want to say cleaned out. That was a clean out shot where he hits him and he just goes somewhere. And he was in the shot and then he was gone. And then he was up. He's up and his legs really were underneath him.
But Espinoza can, one of all Mexicans, seems to be all Mexicans, they can fight when they have nothing left. I mean, that gets, and when you're big as well, that gets you out of trouble. But also being so tall for the weight, when you are a little bit, don't know where you are, and you're firing punches, can also put you in trouble. And Ramirez is neat and tidy and clever, and so I think it's another great. This is the better fight. Actually, it's a brilliant fight. I think it's going to steal the show. I do. And saying Valdez and Navarrete, mine said you're going to steal the show with them two on. There's some going, but I still do go towards the champion. I think. I do think Espinoza will just have enough again, a bit more energy. Will have learned from that first fight as well, because he's still in that learning process, isn't he? Ramirez who's technically the better fighter. I tend to think he'll be able to adjust more because he'll know what happened. But when you get a guy like that big, you've got to take chances from too far out. And I know he's got good feet, Ramirez, but you still take the chances with a risk with the guy who's big, throws a lot of punches and can punch as well. So it's always a risk that you're going to get knocked out. So I think Ramirez who took a few good shots as well in that fight.
Yeah, he always got stopped in the last round. Yeah,
will try and be a little bit smarter, but trying to be a little bit cuter might just end up meaning he's losing more rounds. And has to take a risk. But yeah, it's a good fight.
Very, very good fight. As is the last fight that we're going to preview on this week's or today's edition of the Boxing Show. It is this week, because the next one we're doing is not going out for a while. But anyway, Liam Paro makes the first defence of his IBF World Super Lightweight title against Richardson Hitchins. Liam Paro, of course, coming off that brilliant win, which I think has gone still a little bit under the radar this year. That win over Subriel Matias. I think for me, that is...
It's a massive win, that was.
Right up there with the best wins of the year.
Well, look where this fight is.
Yeah. Massive Puerto Rican fan base Liam Paro has gathered.
Pretty
over the
clear
years.
What people thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
They were planning ahead, which is always a dangerous thing to do.
Should we cancel it? No, we'll be fine.
Well, to be fair, though, we all seem to stay away from him, won't we? Like,
yeah.
He wants to fight him. He wants to fight him.
I mean, that is a way. I mean, in the modern landscape of kind of the 4-belt era and what people can find themselves doing to get world titles and picking up world, that is a proper way to win a world title, isn't it? Traveling to fight the most feared man, arguably, in the entire sport of any weight class, and doing a good job on him as well as he did. We won that fight at a canter. That wasn't a close fight at all, and
he showed all the qualities in
all that skill. And he had, I think it was the 6th round when Matias landed a good shot, good right hand.
Didn't panic under pressure. Threw so many shots.
He's very Australian, Liam Paro, and that is in the most complimentary way possible. Not always a compliment when you say that about someone, but anyway, shout out Australia. He is they're nasty, cold.
The corner were brilliant.
They were
brilliant.
Alfie DiCarlo.
They just saying the right things to him all the time. It was like they knew technically what they had to do, but just keeping him G'd up all the time. They saying, "You got it. It's in you. It's in you. You got it. You got it. Just keep punching you. You can win this." And he'd get up in the corner. It was like Andrew Dundee with Leonard against Hagler. 6 minutes, champ. You only got 6 minutes. Get up. It was like that sort of thing. But they were doing that from like round 5.
It feels like you've done 15.
Because they knew, like you got a guy with Matisse who throws loads of punches, and you outworked him. You slowed him down.
It was a fantastic performance.
The feet were brilliant. He's just constantly moving all the time, throwing in blusters or combinations, and with not loads of power, but enough weight to stop you from throwing back.
But a very different stylistic proposition for him in Richardson Hitchins.
No, it is. You got a real slick, clever fighter here who again had a bit of a war of his own, didn't he, against Lemos, innit? Yeah. But showed plenty of bottle and metal as well to get through it. But
I thought he lost that fight.
Yeah, I did as well. But I just think it's a different style. This is. So he's not against a guy who can punch as hard, but he's in a guy who can make him work as hard. So Hitchins got a... So you'll say Hitchinson because it's Richardson, don't you? Yeah. But
Richie Hitchy.
There you go. Yeah,
but
he's got to slow the pace down, and Paro's got to have a box. Paro wants to fight up here, and Hitchins wants to fight down here, and it's whose will overcome it. I'm massively leaning towards Paro, actually. I think Hitchins is technically much better and might be able to catch him coming in and will look brilliant in stages. Will look brilliant, but I just think that again, you talk about that Australian grit and all the rest of it, added with the skill. He got good feet of his own, Paro, by the way. But I think ultimately it's the energy that he has will make Hitchins fight before he wants to, and he'll make you fight at a higher tempo. So come the later rounds, you're always banking on because Hitchins might have it in him to fight through it, but you tend to think with a guy who's technically good, who usually has things his own way and dictates the pace, when they're forced not to do it. I know Lemos pushed him all the time, but again he still had a bit of time before Lemos got onto him. Not much time, but Paro can box as well. That's the thing, and I think he's naturally bigger, and I think that's going to be the difference.
Andy, I mentioned there, it's sort of Liam Paro going from the hunted to the hunter in this fight against Subriel Matias. He showed plenty. There were times where he had to hold his feet in that, but I'd expect him to have to go looking for Richardson Hitchins on Saturday night. Yeah,
it is a different kind of fight, but I feel with Paro, that was such a massive win against Matias, and he will have been aware that pretty much nobody thought he was going to be able to pull that off, that he will have trained like a challenger for this fight, because you can't give that away now. You can't, in your first defence, be in any way complacent or flat. And it sounds like a mad thing to say, because why would you be? But sometimes people are. But I think he will grow with the title, and I think we'll see a better version of him this time around, and I do expect him to win. Hitchins, though, has been waiting for an opportunity for what will feel like forever for him, because he's been trying to insert himself into conversations. We've seen it regularly on social media, and people have been patting him on the head a bit and kind of dismissing him. But now he's got his chance. For him, this will be everything for him. I think it'll be a big blow for him if he loses this fight.
But yes, I think Paro, I think the energy gets him over the line, but Hitchins has the ability to, make him miss, make him pay consistently. I think you can get him just chasing shadows. But I'm walking on the shots. But I think Paro's got the good feet in and out with the feet, so I don't think he'll overcommit to anything. I mean, he'll constantly push the pace, but I think he'll be in and out with his feet, so he'll be lucky to throw and step back out and dab back in constantly. So I think that'll be too much for Hitchins.
Two people who did pick Liam Paro to beat Subriel Matias, Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney both picked him.
Did they?
They did. He sparred a lot with both guys in Vegas, and I always feel like, if you're a foreigner and you're out sparring in Vegas with the top guys in the world, there's a bit of grit. He is very much that kind of like, we're cricket fans, Steve Waugh, Ricky Ponting, that kind of like very.
Yeah, they've got the dog in them.
Yeah, and he very much does have that. It's not to say Richardson Hitchins
holiday the Pontins.
No, you went to Lapland, mate. You're above Pontins now. Shout out Pontins. But anyway, I feel like also that could give Liam that Richardson Hitchins got that very American style outside boxing, likes to slow the pace down. If you're sparring with your Devin Haney's of the world, your Shakur Stevensons of the world, you're probably quite attuned and accustomed to that now at this point.
Yeah, I think so, and that's something you got to take out of his comfort zone. That's why sometimes you have to train at a high. Even if you box at a slow pace, you have to train at a high intensity pace, because you don't know how. You got to think you got to have the engine to do it, and he might have the engine to do it, but he struggled against Lemos, and Paro's not the same fighter as him, but I mean, it'd be a higher work rate with less power, but more accuracy and bigger. I know Lemos is quite short, isn't he? So yeah, I think he'll struggle. It's a good fight though. It's a really good, interesting fight actually, because you might see just Hitchins shine and see some brilliance there. But I think Paro is not just high energy and tough. He's technically quite good as well, in a basic way. He does the 1-2 down the line. Nothing's flash about him, I don't think, but everything's like neat and tidy, and again he has those feet like Opataya a little bit. These high, the feet in and out always, but like bouncing on his feet, that gives him the high energy and gives him the good rhythm for his work. He's a good fighter, he is.
Looking forward
to
like
in a good weight division.
It is a very good weight division. It's still, as we've mentioned that about 140 for a little while now, it's still in the post Josh Taylor era. Looking for that. Who's
but they're all there now.
Someone's going to rubber stamp who we thought it was going to be Matias. Is it Paro? Paro's already beaten Matias. He beats Richardson Hitchins, who's consensus top 10, top 15 at the weight class, and that's another good notch on the bedpost for him.
The winner could get Catchall, can they?
Yeah, this seems to be what they're looking at. I think Liam Paro against Jack Catchall. There's two southpaws, man. We don't know. If it's the first half of the Prograis fight, we're not interested. If it's the second half, sign us up. Then we're all good. Okay, that brings to an end today's episode. Thank you to Mr. Barry Jones and Mr. Annie Clarke for joining us, and to you for sitting through the last hour and a half or so. Don't forget to let us know in the comments who you think will win. Will it be Navarrete or Oscar Valdez? Will it be Rafael Espinoza or Robesi Ramirez? And will it be Liam Paro or Richardson Hitchins? Let us know in the comments, and we'll catch up with you next week.